organization that has as many platforms and has monetized his skill as much as Lee has. We have been very grateful to have him in the organization all these years. He's taught us so much about so many topics, and he is here now to teach us about entrepreneurial travel writing and publishing. And let's give a hand to Lee.
Thank you, Linda. Welcome, and I want to first extend my appreciation to the people who created this opportunity for us today, and there are two of them. One is Dan Marengo of Visit Berkeley. They're our sponsors and hosts today, and I'm going to ask Dan to come up and tell you a little bit about the joy of Berkeley. It's a special day in Berkeley. A lot of things are open and free. And the person not here, but whom we'll meet later, is named Michael Anzalone, who at 1 o'clock, if you're interested, will give us a tour of this special David Brower facility. So this is Dan.
Thank you all for coming to Berkeley, and thanks to Lee for bringing BHW back to Berkeley after a couple years. Really appreciate it, Lee. And also I just wanted to thank, Michael's not here right now, but the Brower Center hosted this venue space for the event, and that was very spirit of partnership. We have a lot of that in Berkeley, so I wanted to thank him, and I'll thank him later as well. Visit Berkeley is a local destination marketing organization for Berkeley. We have a visitor information center over on Addison Street, right across from the Berkeley Rep. And our mission is really to bring Berkeley's image into a more contemporary light. Free speech and flower power, you know, it's still in our DNA, but it's not what contemporary Berkeley is about on the streets today. So food and culture, arts is what we're really trying to promote, and it's quite easy here, and there's a lot going on in Berkeley at all times. Next week at the Berkeley Repertory Theater, Mikhail Brishnikov is in town in Paris for a run at the Berkeley Rep. In this building, which we will be enjoying later for lunch as well, is Gather Restaurant, which has the Esquire magazine Chef of the Year and Sean Baker, and their catering arm will be catering lunch today. So I just wanted to mention those two things, food and culture, big in Berkeley. And then today, if you have time later on, there's a lot going on in town. I'm sure you've noticed, it's Cal Day, it's an annual event, and it's kind of a local, regional travel story in a way, because the entire city, all the museums are free, most of the activities on campus are free as well. So it's a good opportunity to kind of take advantage of that. There's a brand new museum right across the street here, the Magnus Collection of Jewish Art and Life. And they'll have two tours this afternoon, 2:30 and 3:30, if you want to take advantage of that. And just up the street a little bit, the Berkeley Art Museum, which you're probably familiar with, they'll have a guided tour at 3:30 today. So a lot to do and see in Berkeley today as always. And again, I want to thank Lee for bringing this organization here. And without further ado.
And perhaps you got the little drive from Dan. Dan with details on it. I think Dan will have a map or something to give us after lunch to look around. Okay, well, let's get on with our discussion today on entrepreneurial travel publishing. And our question is, can a travel journalist connect with an audience and earn income in the modern context? I believe the answer is yes, but it's not easy. Now, my goal today is that you will come away with something that is useful to you. Maybe it'll be something practical, maybe as we discuss ebooks, you'll see something that would be helpful to you. Or if nothing is practically helpful, I'm hoping that you'll come away with a bit of an inspirational message about our trajectories. We're all on different trajectories. I'd like to begin by showing you some samples of things that I have done and been doing for quite a while. Because they all will figure into our structural discussion of this entrepreneurial travel publishing. Here is a prototype book called Backroads Britain from Dorland Kinserly. And in April of next year, I will have a book out called Backroads California that I completed a third of. I have the contract to do a third of the book. I completed that in 2011. These are probably the most beautiful and nicely edited books in the world today. They're also a very successful publisher, and it's good to know that there are successful travel publishers out there. So they had $45,000 to invest in the content for the Backroads California. I did a third of the book and got $15,000. Chris Baker and Bob Holmes are my partners doing the rest. Then the other mega publisher, and this falls under the category of participating in the mega publishers who are successful. The other publisher that I'm involved with, as many of you know, is Lonely Planet. I don't write any of their books, but I have a lot of photography in their books. In fact, by the year 2005, I had photos in 225 of their books. That was the era of largesse, in which they would send me a copy of every book, which I had photos in. But things tightened up a bit after 2005. So that's one category. The other category of publishing that I think is somewhat more troubled, and this is where we are all involved in the transition in publishing. These are recent books that I've done with the boutique royalty publishers. That's what I call them anyway, the boutique royalty publishers. These two with Countryman Press, photographers, Guide to San Francisco, and one in Washington, and this book with Globe Pequot. Now, for reasons that I'll discuss, these boutique royalty publishers are having a more and more difficult time selling their books. And participating in their venture is less plausible than it was 10 years ago. Therefore, into that vacuum steps the independently published book opportunity. And this is a book, Travels in American Imagination, that I published independently in 2005. And that was actually a little bit before the more recent period where things are easier to do in independent publishing with print on demand and with ebooks and so forth. But I will do 2 new books next year that will be totally my own books. One will be called Northern California Nature Travel, the Best Options, and one will be called Northern California Cultural Travel, the Best Options. So I'm on this trajectory of doing independent books. Then here's a little stack of legacy projects. I say legacy projects because they're books and projects. The short story of my life is that I grew up in Minnesota. I went to Notre Dame as an undergraduate. I came out to Stanford, and I began doing books. And because I got this novel and this literary book about Minnesota published at the beginning, I was hooked forever, and I'm doing my own projects for my life, and therefore became unemployable as a potential teacher of the gifted young in the university. Among these legacy projects, there are two that have a bearing on our issues today. And our issue today is understanding the changing technology and taking advantage of it. This is a book I did called Making the Most of the Peninsula, about the Silicon Valley region. I did it in 1983. And I wrote it on my computer, which was an anomaly in that era. But I also was aware of a breaking technology in 1983 where you could actually lay out a book from a computer disk. And I went to the publisher, Presidio Press, and said, well, we know it'll cost you $3,000 to typeset this book. That was, at that point, a very big part of the expense of bookmaking was the actual typesetting. So I said, you know, I think I might be able to lay this out from my computer disk. How would it be if you pay me half of that, or $1,500 if I bring in the book printed out on the photographic paper of the day that we used? And I literally knew someone in Los Altos who had this big machine in their garage, and they had hooked up to their computer, and you put in the code A1, 12-point Bodoni, and so forth, to get the type. So Presidio said, yes, I mean, you save us $3,000, we'll write you a check for $1,500, no problem. So I brought it in, they wrote a check, and so that was, you know, becoming aware of the technology of that moment to our advantage. Then this is another kind of fun thing. Fast forward 10 years to 1993. There's a breaking technology, the CD-ROM. The internet has not yet appeared. In 1995, the internet appeared. But the CD-ROM technology broke in 1993. Now, the CD-ROM was really a special new kind of product because you could have an infinite amount of graphics in it. A book, for example, could have maybe 100 photos in it, a physical book. A CD-ROM could have 1,000 photos, plus text, which don't take up much room. So a company came to me and they said, Lee, we know you've got a lot of California writing and photography. Let's do a CD-ROM. We'll put 1,000 photos in it and your text. And this is the CD-ROM, and this is the big box that it came in. And you know, they felt they needed a lot of air around this CD-ROM to sell it successfully, and they had a market for it because they had to deal with Radio Shack. Radio Shack had 7,000 stores, and this company had to deal where if they manufactured a product, Radio Shack would buy 2 units for each store. So the day we manufactured it, we had 14,000 sales. And we sold it pretty well for a few years. And then with the appearance of the internet, you could put the graphics on the internet, and the specialness of therefore the CD-ROM product became less special. And so those are some samples. Now the other, you know, big venue to keep aware of course, is the major magazine world that many of us are participating in. And I'm participating in quite a few of these magazines. This is VR, a local magazine that you're, I'm sure, familiar with. And typically in the January issue, I have this photo of Tahoe. The price at VR and generally magazine for photos has fallen about 50% in the last 5 years. So this photo that the market price is now about $250 would have been $500 to $600 5 years ago. So that's a factor that we need to be aware of. So those are some samples. Now I have 2 articles on my website that I want to draw your attention to because they will always be up there and they summarize a lot of what I'm going to talk about today. One is called Entrepreneurial Travel Publishing. And you see it here under Community, on the left-hand side. Can you see the little hand there? And under Travel Journalism Instruction, I have some articles. One of them is this Entrepreneurial Travel Publishing article. And the other article is a specialized look called the eBook Publishing Revolution. And ebooks are very much the subject of the moment, as we all know. So those two articles are there for your reference and will always be there. So let's begin this then with looking at things structurally about where are the good deals in the old publishing world. As I've said, one of course is DK, another is Lonely Planet. And I found that if you have your content up on your website, the opportunities increase for you to license to this older world of travel magazines and book companies, because editors find you. For example, Costco magazine came to me and said, we like your New Brunswick article on your website. Do 1,000 words for us for $1,000 for the magazine. So I did, and it worked out fine. Another aspect of this working with the old world is that many of the great magazines now have their own iPad version of the magazine. So for example, I have sales this year to Travel and Leisure's iPad version, and that has its own separate set of editors buying, writing, and buying photography. So I think that there are still good opportunities to pursue in the so-called old world of publishing. So let's consider now this issue of the boutique royalty publishers and their and the challenge they have selling books. If you are in the activity of selling books, it would be good to get what is called an Amazon authors page. This is my Amazon authors page. Amazon, incidentally, determines which books you are the authors of. So I'm the author of record for a Sunset book from 1981 named Do-It-Yourself Roofing and Siding. It isn't top of mind. It isn't top of mind at this point from my perspective. But Amazon controls the books that appear in your author's page and the rank. So they sold so many of those books that will be up there forever. So I have 15 books that are in my Amazon authors page, though there are maybe 10 that I truly love. So if we look at these boutique books, such as this Countryman Press book, they're having a hard time successfully selling these books. And we all know it if you're working in the boutique world. For one thing, 10 years ago, the bookstore was a primary selling vehicle. Today, Amazon sells 60% of all books. So the uniqueness of the boutique publisher providing access to the market is greatly diminished. Right now, if Amazon sells 60% of the books and Barnes & Noble sells 28% of the books, then, and you can get your book into Barnes & Noble, at least I have been able to get my independent book into Barnes & Noble if I can create a market, then see the uniqueness that the boutique publishers offered in access is really no longer operative. They also can't get books successfully into specialty stores. Globe Pequot or Countryman Press can't get my book into Chrissy Field, the Chrissy Field Warming Hut. That's where the book needs to be. The book is in Chrissy Field Warming Hut because I made special energy efforts. And that's where books sell now. So you also, as the author, need to do most of the promotion that actually sells a book. So all of this leads up to the conclusion that you might as well own the book if you're going to have to distribute it and promote it. The market is totally fractionalized, and the big brands like Globe Pequot and Countryman are no longer that significant. Moreover, a huge conflict has arisen between the boutique publishers and authors who understandably want to put similar content up on their websites. So if you own your book, of course you can use your content on your website, but if you are publishing it with one of these boutique publishers, they will be very nervous about you putting the unreinvented content up on your website. So the general direction that is fruitful, I think, is to go into doing your own independent books, such as this book that I did in 2005. And as I said, I'll do 2 more this coming year in the same vein.
Lee, is that a book print on demand?
No.
Okay.
That's a good point, a very good question. This book has color photos in it. And even today, you need to do a book in Asia, 3,000 units. You need to manufacture it in China or Malaysia and ship it across the ocean to Oakland if you've got color photos in it. Print on demand isn't quite there for color yet. But print on demand is there for black and white. So what I will do for these 2 books next year, I will do them through an entity called Lightning Source, which will make them available to Ingram. I'll do a print on demand black and white book for people who want a physical book. I'll do a beautiful color ebook, and of course I'll have things up on my website. And because these are travel subjects, not literary subjects, so to speak, I will probably also have an app out with the content on it. So,
could you repeat the name of
what?
that? The print-on-demand publisher you're going to use?
Yes, it's called Lightning Source. It's a branch of the Ingram distribution system. So if you can create demand for your book in a bookstore, every bookstore buys through Ingram. And Ingram has its own very high quality print-on-demand operation called Lightning Source. To work with Lightning Source, you have to act like a publisher, not an author who wants to be published. So there's a little more energy that is required of you to be a professional publisher. But it's all doable. So I'm an advocate of going in this direction of doing independent books at this time. Now, what has happened dramatically in the last couple of years that really tips the enterprise in favor of independent publishing is the emergence of the ebook model. And this is a company called Book Baby in Portland that is, I think, the best partner player now if you're going to do an ebook. I have just done my book as an ebook with them, and I'll do these 2 new books as an ebook with them. And Book Baby is the child company of a company called CD Baby. Both owned and started by a man named Brian Felsen. I pause here for a moment to indicate our respect for musicians and how they led the way for us as authors. Because musicians had the desire to sell their music, electronic files, on Amazon and Apple. And musicians provoked the creation of this entity called CD Baby with Brian Felsen. There are now 250,000 musicians that work with Brian Felsen, and he's paid them $200 million in royalties, using a financial formula similar to his proposal to us as book authors. So musicians led the way. So what is the deal with Book Baby? The deal is you make a small upfront payment. Here it says $99, but I prefer the $199 premium package, because you upload your book, and with the premium package you can get back proofs, and you can upload again. You keep tweaking it. With the $99 package, it's a shot in the dark. You upload your book and pull the trigger, and if it looks good, everything's fine. But it's better to do the $199 package. So it's only $199 to get started. Then you get 100% of the money collected, the net sales collected by Book Baby, and you pay Book Baby a long tail fee of $19 a year in years 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. And you, at first glance, you think, well, how can they make any money? Well, they've got 250,000 musicians, each paying them $19 a year for CD year 2, 3, 4, and 5, etc. So it somehow works, and I found them a really good outfit to work with. Now note the difference in revenue. When my book with Countryman Press, when this book went up as an ebook, Countryman Press generously raised my royalty rate for the ebook to 20% of the net sale, not 15% of the net sale as in print. So 20% of the net sale or 100% of the net sale. It was an easy choice, you know, as I think of my options for future books. Ebooks are not difficult to do. Basically, I use a Word, and they recommend to use a Word file. And you set up the ebook in a Word file. You can allocate a page for a photograph. The chief concepts to be aware of with an ebook is that, unlike a print book, you don't do a highly structured layout. The ebook needs to flow, because the end user might want to increase the type size. Therefore, you don't want to have a very very careful structure of wraparound, etc. The ebook has to flow. And so I found a simple Word file worked fine. The Countryman Press did their ebooks from the InDesign file, in which they had technically done the book, and they're not better than my Word file in terms of the ending product as you look at it. The exciting thing about an ebook or an AOP is to say the exciting thing when you get into these electronic products is that you do suddenly have an opportunity to sell a book worldwide, or to sell a product, not a book, worldwide. You now have 7 billion potential customers out there. My books with Countryman, for example, will never sell outside of North America. unless there's some tremendously heroic sale where someone in Singapore says, yes, I will pay the freight. I mean, actually, from Countryman I get every 6 months I get my royalties, and they have U.S. sales and foreign sales. Do you know where the foreign sales are? Canada. So within North America, they can sell a few print books, but ebooks and apps have the opportunity to sell anywhere in the world. For example, when I get into the discussion of apps shortly, my San Francisco app, which is a parallel to this book, has sold in 46 foreign countries. So the opportunity to sell an electronic product worldwide is a very significant aspect of things.
Lee, do you mind if we ask questions now?
Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, how do you price your ebooks?
It's a complicated question to answer. I'm pricing it at what I think the market will bear at this time, and I think it's $3.99, $2.99. It's a very controversial issue, though, and the judgments that we make on pricing may be revised in the future. I think, though, the prices will come to a fairly low level, but not everyone is in agreement on that. There are competing visions, and you just have to look at what you know about how other books are being priced, how the market is flowing, and whether you want your Cabernet to be $100 bottle or a $10 box, and then the market will respond. So, moving off of books for a minute, I want to go on to websites, because whatever we are doing in our travel production at this point, there's going to be a website component in your success. And so I'd like to discuss this a bit. The website component. This is my website, which many of you are familiar with. The general strategy that I recommend is that you use a WordPress structure and that you learn to do all the routine stuff yourself, swapping in and out, but that you get design help to create it and to upgrade it. My designer is Bradley Charbonneau, who many of you know, and his little clicking at Lacoma is in the lower right-hand corner. With working with Bradley, it's important that you know what you want for your website. He can execute it if you know what you want. People are always asking me, well, Lee, where is the money in the website? So I want to go over this a bit. First of all, licensing is my largest source of income from the website. There's licensing of individual articles and licensing of individual photos, places like Costco and Via. And then I'm going to, after I finish this kind of discussion of the website, talk about group licensing, because this is a very hopeful thing that I have to impart to you today. As some of you know, I did a major group licensing of my 200 worldwide articles to an entity called Uniglobe this past year. And I've now updated 80 of the articles. All 200 will eventually be updated and put into the Uniglobe system. So I'll get into that in a minute. But besides this licensing, on the website you'll notice there are these Google ads. There are 3 ads possible on a page with Google. I have one at the top, I have one on the right here, and then I have one that's embedded in the articles, though not on the front page. I also have private ads. Here's a little ad, a very specialized entity, Hotels.com in San Diego said, we want to put a little block on your front page for $300 a year. Do you want to do it? So I said, okay, you can do that. And then here is an affiliate type of ad for Hotels.com, where if someone clicks through from my site to Hotels.com and buys a room, I get 5% of the revenue that they spent. So that is a whole other kind of ad. People can click through to Amazon and buy books from my site, and I get a little Amazon affiliate revenue. Then of course I sell my products. I have my books that I sell by pointing people to Amazon or getting people to buy them from me direct. I have my apps that I sell by pointing them to the iTunes or the Android store. All my apps are now out in Android as well as in Apple. On the top here, because of my photo shelter photo selling site, which I'll go into in a little bit, I can sell prints, products, meaning cards, for example, and personal licenses to people of all the photos that I have on my photo selling site, which you get to by searching from this site. I had a sale this week, for example, just a small sale. You'd say, well, it's pretty small. It's $3.99 to a person who in Reno who wanted a certain picture of Tahoe or her wedding album. So she was able to download the picture, etc. So these micro sales are worth it from my perspective.
When you said personal license, did you just mean a sale?
I mean, they get the right to download the file and do things with it for personal, but not for sale. Like they might want to make a print of their own of the photograph, or they might, in her case, she wanted to put it into her wedding book. So see, this is again my basic strategy of provide structures to assist basically honest people to remain honest. In other words, I have salespeople who want a photo for their blog. Okay, you know, I have a structure so they can properly license a photo to put it on their blog.
Excuse me, are you using PhotoQuote within Photoshop?
I have that capacity, but I actually set up the pricing myself. So I have, for high-end magazine sale markets, if the magazine doesn't want to deal with me, they can use my PhotoQuote prices. But for these smaller sales, I have set up a pricing structure. And if it involves making a product like a card, say a set of cards, then I have a known price from Photo Shelter for the manufacturing of it. And then I mark it up to my price for it.
Lee, when you sell your products directly, how do you collect the revenue? How do people pay you?
You mean in this?
Well, like the $3.99 photo, or
Yeah.
we buy the books from you from
It's
the
all paid
website.
up front on PayPal.
It's PayPal, I mean.
Yeah. So because I have these revenues from the website, I am motivated to do social media outreach. And so I do a modest amount. Every week I do a posting. People are following me on Facebook. I do a posting of a new article or a revised article. And I draw people's attention to this announcement. So it's a good news thing for them. You know, maybe it's the article on polar bears or something. And it draws people back to my website where they can be monetized. So I can use harsh words. So as you think of your website, the issue is the functionality of the website. And I keep thinking about this myself too. I mean, how can I improve my website and think of the most basic things? First of all, you want to have a good e-commerce structure. And e-commerce structures change and get better. That's why Bradley Sharpley is spending his waking moments watching over the plug-in world. And every year or so he comes to me and says, Lee, there's a new e-commerce thing and I think we should put it in. I say, Bradley, go for it. How good is the turnkey licensing of content on your site if you are dealing with things like photos? How easy is basic navigation on your site? People can search my writings for articles. They can also search this geographic locations if they just want to look at articles on Europe. Simple ease of navigation is something to keep in mind. And for photos, how easily can people find your photos? How easily can they sign up? Do an email sign up over here so that they can learn when you have a new article release from me. And one thing I pride myself on is the ease of printouts that I have built into this site. I mean, the goal is to give service to people so they come back and like your site. See this little print button? People can print out my 5 to 10 page articles and take it with them. People like that. And then too, how easy is interaction on the site? If if someone wants to leave a little comment, like Franz Mueller here wanted to leave a little comment, okay? Thank you, Franz. So, and if he asks a question, then I interact with him because I see his question and I will respond. So the functionality is a whole issue.
Lee?
Yes.
Do you charge something for them to print it out?
No.
It's free. They print out a photo too.
They can print out a photo.
Lee, do you post articles after you publish them somewhere else, or are these articles that you might then sell somewhere else, and then will the magazine say, no, you don't want it because you've already published it on your website?
So, a very good question. I own all these articles, and I have the rights to all these articles, and I publish some of the articles in Travel and Leisure. For example, I published my Anza-Borrega Desert State Parks in Travel and Leisure. I published my cross-country ski in California in the Los Angeles Times, but I deliberately retained ownership of the articles. And so editors will know what their parameters are in terms of getting content. Some will not be disturbed at all by this, that it's been published somewhere else because they have a new audience. So there could be any number of ways in which your question could be answered. But the question is an important one because you need to be aware of the terms and conditions that you are agreeing to. Because they will affect, when you publish an article, the terms and conditions you agree to may affect your future opportunities. And here's the big example. I have licensed all my 200 articles this year to this Uniglobe system. Uniglobe is one of the great worldwide travel agency systems. They were founded in Eastern Canada. They have 450,000 worldwide customers. They determined last year that they wanted to have their own consumer content website, and they wanted to work with about 3 people who could provide a lot of content for them. And they chose me. And so I'm upgrading all of my 200 articles gradually and feeding them into their system. I've updated 80 as of now. So this is my Easter Island article. And my license to them is of text. They're not my photographs. I wish they were. I wish I had that sale too, but I didn't. And they have other ways of getting their photography. I'll tell you the financial deal on it is I've negotiated that I get a fee per month from them, possibly forever, for the use of my content. And I negotiated that I would get a percentage of the revenue from ads on the website. And that I get this little, let's see, at the bottom of the page, that little bio thing of me for each article, which, you know, sells a book or two. And then my fourth benefit is that I'm motivated to update my 200 worldwide articles, because there's a point to it, and they are badly out of date, and it's really makes me feel good to update them. Go ahead.
Well, two questions. Did
Yeah.
you negotiate the contract with an agent or by yourself?
I negotiated by myself.
Good for you. And the next one is, do they license one-time use on the website fees, or do they own them forever once you
No,
update them?
it's again a good question. I want to go into the details of the contract that I wrote. No, I mean, you have to think of it from their point of view and my point of view, and this marriage may not last forever. So what I proposed and they agreed to was that they can stop anytime, but when they stop, they have to pay me for 6 months in the future. You know, the monthly fees to license my content, and they can stop at any time. And a year after they stop, they have to remove all my content from the website. So it protects them and me. Now that they've got 80 of my units in the website, you know, the chances that this romance will proceed are greater. And the more invested they get each month in me, the greater the chances are that this will proceed. Now I mention this Uniglobe because it's a good thing for me, and I feel there will be many opportunities for you in parallel ventures as we look ahead. Because the sale of travel content is going right to the web rather than being stimulated in the magazine or the newspaper. And the structure of the sale is right on the web. So you can imagine that Southwest Airlines, for example, which sells all their tickets right on their website, will of course want to have something from you or me on Southwest cities, on all Southwest cities. And if there were more than 24 hours in a day, I would have already been there because I could do Southwest cities. And you similarly have your content, which is special, and there may be opportunities for you with your kind of content in these emerging structures. So getting your content up in units on your website is step one. And in this case, Uniglobe found me rather than me find them. But of course, good to look in both directions.
So these are still on your website as well?
What?
So Uniglobe has this contract with you. Are these on your website
Yeah.
as well?
They'll always be on my website.
So, okay, great.
They'll always on my website, but I put them on their website. Now, I want to come back a little bit to that terms and conditions question because this is an important matter. Uniglobe didn't mind that the content is on my website, and they don't mind that I published it in Travel and Leisure and it's on their website, or Los Angeles Times on their website. They wouldn't mind it if I had published it on Examiner.com, because Examiner.com's contract allows them to subsell it to Demand Media and subsell it to USA Today with no benefit to the author. So it could be anywhere and everywhere all around. And from Uniglobe's point of view, this would mess up their SEO, their search engine optimization, forever. So they don't mind it being on my site, a couple other sites, little sites, relatively little sites. But so that's just something to be aware of when you sign any agreement for your content, especially on the web. What are the terms and conditions that you are agreeing to? Because those may govern your opportunities looking ahead.
So in the case of Uniglobe, you're semi-exclusive.
I guess you could call that, yeah, semi-exclusive. Yeah.
So if you have an article that gets published on
Yeah.
an online website that you get paid per click, and then you take that article and you put it on your blog,
Yeah.
you're kind of taking away from getting paid for those clicks. So are you better than putting links on your
guess the issue would be whether your own website has sufficient monetizing. It might be superior to the potential monetizing on the other site. So it's a complex question that you ask.
Well, if you're talking
A
about.
lot of variables.
It's esteemed.com.
No.
Yeah, we get nothing.
The terms and conditions that others agree to with you, too, they need to honor it. And it's a juicy story. I will just give it to you in brief. But Hood and Mifflin Harcourt paid me $11,000 this past year because there were 3 photographs of mine that they'd run in textbooks and that they'd licensed for press runs of up to 100,000. And they came to me and said, you know, we've got these photos and we now want to license them for $1 million, for 10 more years for $1 million. And I said, well, that's great. So we worked out a price of $650 for each of the licenses for the photos for 1 million units. And then I asked about this comment in their statement about asking for the invoice that this this new license would also address certain issues of overprinting from the earlier license. So what happened was that they had licensed it for 100,000 textbooks, but they were very successful. They kept, and the production people kept right on printing. Maybe they printed 250,000 and sold them. So here, Hood, Mifflin and Harcourt was out of compliance with the license that we had agreed to, and they were violating their own high-minded mission statement at the front of their website on the way they honored copyright and so forth. So I gave them an opportunity to come back into compliance, and I negotiated that they would pay a little punishment fee of $3,000 per image to me, plus the new license fee, and they agreed to that. So
Lee, how did you find out how many copies
I didn't find out exactly how many. I didn't need to know. I only needed to know that they had sinned.
How did you learn that?
What?
How did you learn that?
By having a good relationship with the person who sent me the original contract, and by asking about it, and then by re-asking for 6 months straight, very politely in the first of the month. Have you come up with the details yet, and so forth. So,
But they tried to sneak it through. Not having that other license.
I would not want to characterize that. As I said to you earlier, my basic wish is to allow honest people to remain honest. So, moving on to another subject of great interest to all of us, to many of us, can you make money in apps? And I'm still a believer in the app vision, though our experiences are somewhat tempered at this mature moment in the app revolution. Again, I'm a believer in it because the app is a worldwide sale opportunity. It's not easy to sell anything in the modern world in travel. So the sale is not automatic, as some of us have learned. I believe there is the incremental sale possibility of improving your product and improving the marketing of your app product. Then there's the viral sale possibility, of course. If you get a good mention in the right place, good things can happen. Now, as many of you know, this app, San Francisco Travel Photo Guide, was chosen by Apple as a staff favorite in one fortunate month. And it sold 1,000 units in the month that followed its selection as a staff favorite. So I keep watching for my next staff favorite to appear. But I basically think that it's wise to have your content in all the available forms. You know, a printed book, an e-book, website and in an app if your travel content benefits from software, ability to sort and organize. And that's the whole point of apps, that they, as opposed to ebooks. You know, we think of ebooks as a facsimile reading experience of a book, but apps can allow you to sort not only San Francisco from A to Z, but just pull out the restaurants, just pull out things around you in the Golden Gate Park, etc., and use the maps. So, considering photography for the moment, can you sell travel photos directly in the modern world effectively? And the answer is you can if you have a sophisticated photo selling site that makes the experience of the photo buyer smooth and easy and comfortable. This is my photo selling site on an entity called Photo Shelter, and they are now the best player in this world of photo selling. They have 70,000 photographers who have signed up to put their content into this Photo Shelter structure. Now you just use their space in their software. You create your own look and feel. You totally manage your own e-commerce, and you have your own trusted list of clients, etc. But it cost me $549 a year to rent their space and software for my large collection of images. The beginning price would be about $300 a year. You have to upload your photos, but you can set your own prices and so forth. So I use this with all of my interaction with photo editors. When Maggie Perkins of VIA tells me she wants some Tahoe pictures, I do a little gallery for her of some winter Tahoe pictures. And she's on my trusted client list, so she can download a photo at any hour of the day or night, high res. I see the download. I have a photo of Molokai in Islands this month of May, and the same deal. This Lori Bartley is the photo editor. She's on my trusted client list. She said, we're going to do Molokai. I made a little gallery. She downloads it. You have to make it real smooth and easy for them.
Lee?
Yes, sir. Yes.
When you upload your pictures, you say high res.
Yes.
Are you sending out TIFFs or
High-res JPEGs.
high res JPEGs?
Yeah. You put up one high-res JPEG, and then the system in Photo Shelter makes smaller res images for potential users who want just a small one.
Lee, do you handle all this yourself when you deal with clients? You do all this work individually with them?
Well, Photo Shelter is its own ecosystem. For one thing, people find you, and then it's just a matter of you allowing them to download, and then you send them an invoice.
Okay, but you still, you don't fill the orders necessarily. If they're on your trusted client list, that's not a problem because you know they'll pay
Yeah.
for what they use.
Yeah.
But for new clients that come in, you have to handle the downloads and
No, I have to give them the permission to do the work themselves. For example, and this is a good illustration of this, of being a whole ecosystem in itself. A French magazine called Ulysse, a travel magazine, you may know it. They contacted me saying, we want to use a certain Alaska picture on your Photo Shelter site. So I said, fine. This is what I propose as the price. They said, okay, we agreed. And so I gave them permission to download. I sent them an invoice. So they did the download themselves.
but you still have to interact with the sales. I'm just thinking
Yeah.
of time spent.
No, exactly. Which brings us to the next aspect of this question, really. If you're selling these photographs directly, do you still need an agency in the selling photos? And the answer is absolutely, because the unknown client and the client beyond your 24-hour-a-day opportunity for interaction is, of course, much greater than the known clients. So this is a system called Alamy that I would most recommend to any of you. Because it's located in England. They sell worldwide, and you can put your images in. They don't edit, you edit. You have to have you have to develop the technical skills to produce a quality photo, and then they handle all the marketing and interaction with the client, so you don't do any of that. So here are some Mono Lake pictures. So Alamy just is the no participation by you after you have put your images up there. And
They charge a fee, of course.
they determine the fee, and they pay you 60% of the money that they get. Yeah, yeah. So Alamy is a very good player in the worldwide system. I was with Alan Capel recently, who is the head of Alamy, at a conference, and Alamy paid $12 million last year to its photographers, who had 26 million pictures up. So the average picture earned, if you do the math, slightly less than 50 cents a picture. So, get up some pictures and earn some money on Alamy. I have 5,000 pictures up, and I earned about $12,000 last year. So as Garrison Keillor said of Minnesota boys and their pictures, our pictures are just slightly above average. Yes.
So a lot of what you're talking about are people finding you. I mean, I know you have a lot of content online. You have photographs, you have articles. So, I mean, are you just kind of at the point where you have so much content that people are actually, like, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're not actively pursuing markets. Markets are sort of finding you.
I am actively pursuing. They are finding me, but I'm actively pursuing too. I think it works both ways, and there's no rest for the wicked. I think you have to continue to kind of promote yourself. But, I have I know I can create a market for anything I decide to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one aspect in answering your question. But I'm still actively marketing. Yes.
Question from the perspective of a foreign tourist office.
Yeah.
These destinations that you write about, yes, there is about polar bear somewhere and
Yeah.
Swiss Alps or whatever. Do you go out, do you identify the destinations you want to write about, or would you accept invitations by foreign agencies to write about their destinations?
Well, I would
And
accept.
what are the guidelines if you do accept that invitation?
No, I would accept. I accept sponsored trip opportunities, and strategically. It has to be a subject that I think will be good for my mix. And if it's a sponsored trip and a good subject, I will accept it. And so that's how I react to
So
that.
you would go on a media van trip
Yes.
with a group of people?
Yes. Yes.
Can I just interject for a second?
Yep.
On the subject of stock, Alamy is a stock agency, and so they do the work. There's this question over here.
Yeah.
They do the work. People who are looking for stock pictures will go there and search for a variety of sources. Photo Shelter, on the other hand, is a stock portal, and that means that no one goes there looking for stock like they do Alamy. It's just your mechanism in order to deliver. Photo Shelter has a lot of flexibility in that you can set it up in a variety of different ways. One of which is that if somebody wants to use a license of it, there's a built-in software thing called PhotoQuote, and that has industry kind of standardized pricing, and someone can drill down through all the variables of how big the magazine is, what's the distribution, etc., and they can buy it and download it, and I don't know if Photo Shelter takes a small percentage for that, but the payment's handled. Also, they have another thing where, as Lee was saying, you can set up price structures for other things like prints of different sizes and coffee mugs and gift card sets and everything
Products,
else.
yeah.
And you have two options there. One is that you, they just simply facilitate the order and then you have to physically handle it. And the other is they have a lab that will actually print it and do it and produce it. And they can do everything and they take a little bit more money and out of their percentage and they just send you a check. So totally automated in that sense.
So good observations on these nuances.
And you still need to drive people to the portal, or even as Lee just showed, you can call up all his images on Alamate, and he can still direct people to his collection of his images on Alamate as well, and that's where all the social media comes in, pointing.
So good points. So as a final aspect of our meditation, I think it's important to think of some video efforts in your, as you advance your own travel content. And because YouTube, for example, is the second largest search engine after Google. So if you're not on YouTube, you don't exist for those search opportunities. I won't play this, but this is a Hokulea, a video of mine on YouTube with my voice, my stills, and some video clips. And this is a growth area that I will put some attention into as we look ahead. So anyway, that is really the spectrum of things that I wanted to mention. I hope something here has been useful to you for practical or inspirational purposes. And I don't know how much time we have at this point. We're at 12:07, so we're probably moving pretty much into lunch. We have a couple of questions, or should we go, Ray? Go ahead.
I have another one of those mundane questions.
Yeah.
When someone orders your book from your website,
Yeah.
are you there wrapping it up and sending it out yourself?
I am.
Yeah.
I am.
Why do you have time to write?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah.
So when you talked about having your content available in all forms, printed book, ebook, website, etc., for the printed book,
Yeah.
were you recommending now the print on demand?
I'm recommending print on demand, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, print on demand, doing a black and white only book. Because you could have black and white illustrations within a book. But I would do it print on demand. Yeah?
Yeah, Lee, some of your photos and video have people in them. Do you have to get signed releases from everybody that you take a picture of or you take a video of?
No, not generally speaking, no, for editorial uses. Generally, you do not need to have photo releases. For advertising uses, yes. If I have a model release of people, I have more opportunity to market the image in more ways and at a higher price. But strictly speaking, for this general editorial work in magazines, etc., that I don't need a model release.
It's not a question, it's a thank you, and it's a specific one. I really appreciate your using numbers, $11,004.99.
Yeah.
That makes it so much valuable,
Yeah.
and so few speakers do, so double thanks for that.
Good.
Thank you. I learned a new word, monetize.
Yeah.
Lee, in your experience, do you think that the apps are really catching on? I mean, do you think that, I don't see people using them, When I see all these tourists downtown, I mean,
Yeah.
they're still, they're using like the CVB brochures and stuff like that. And so that's basically my question. Your experience, do you think that the apps have replaced the travel guides?
Well, I think the app sales are growing incrementally, and there are a lot of things replacing the travel guides. But app sales are growing incrementally.
When you travel, do you use an app? Would you use an app, like say if you were?
Well, for example, when I went to New Zealand, I bought the ebook from Lonely Planet, thinking it was a true ebook, but it was just a PDF, and it didn't work on my device. So on my computer, it didn't work. So I was disappointed. So, you know, I would use apps. I mean, like you know, you could go to Washington D.C. and use my Washington D.C. app. I mean, it's useful. Some people are buying it. So, I find that they are useful, yes. One more question, and then maybe we better conclude.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What
Sam.
books are you wrapping up? If it's a print on demand, you don't wrap that,
Yeah,
right? If it's an ebook, you don't wrap that. So they're books.
No, the only book I'm wrapping up is my independently published book, Travels in American Imagination, the literary book. That's the only one that I'm wrapping up. And you're right, print on demand. With print on demand, I will not have to wrap. And that's good. Yeah.
So is this a two wrap or two not two wrap?
This is a wrap.